Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. This is Entertainment Thursday, and we escalate this conversation to yet another important matter that revolves around human-wildlife conflict compensation. There's a program that was started by the government, and it has been ongoing. And to talk about this in studio, I'm joined by Dr. John Kipkorir Chumo, who is the Conservation Secretary at the State Department for Wildlife at the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wish to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank KBC for giving us this opportunity.
Yes.
And indeed, we are discussing a very fundamental issue on human-wildlife conflict.
Yes.
Human-wildlife conflict, as it were, comes as a result because as a country, we are endowed with a lot of resources.
Yes.
Basically, the wildlife resources that we have. That's why if you look at internationally, Kenya is perceived as a country, as a destination where you can be able to see and find wildlife across the country.
Yeah.
And indeed, we are very lucky, even if we are only the only city actually in the world that has a national park within its environs. And we have several, we have protected sites like the national parks, the game reserves, and then also we have the conservancies across the country. We even have individual people, having sanctuaries, having been approved by the government. So actually the number of wildlife that we have is enormous.
Yes.
And therefore, as a result of that, we are people or communities are living just adjacent to most of this, whether it's sanctuary, it's a national park, and a game reserve. And therefore, again, within the conservancies, outside the protected sites, we have about 65% of our wildlife outside there. So I think you are getting it. That means we are saying, like in, we have Safo, Nairobi National Park, we have, in Apadeas, we have, both in Roma and many others. But then we have others, other conservancies which are actually run by communities. And that is where we have an enormous number of wildlife, 65% of the wildlife that we have in this country. And that tells you that having those animals outside there, then there are likelihood of them crossing or getting out of the areas that they have been, expected to stay, and actually now find their way outside there and start, killing people, whether it is a lion, whether it is an elephant, it's, any other animal, like, for example, the hyenas and many others. So that's about killing. They can also destroy property. They can also destroy, kill animals, the livestock, for that matter. And therefore, I think in the recent past, we have seen a lot of issues coming up because of that kind of conflict. Yeah. And you would be asking yourself, what would be the cause of this? Why are we having, an upsurge of human-wildlife conflict in this country, and actually in the whole world? But coming back to Kenya, we have very many reasons why human-wildlife conflicts are rising. One is because of, as I remember telling you sometime that we used to have what we call the migratory routes or dispersal areas for the animals. Like, for example, if you look at Oldonyo Sapuk here, and then we have the Amboseli on the other side. Now, the animals used to, move from Amboseli to Oldonyo Sapuk, for example, or from Oldonyo Sapuk and the other way. Now, you can imagine the way it passes through, Athi River. Now, today, as we are talking about, what do we see in Athi River? We see a lot of houses. We see a lot of people doing farming along the way. We do a lot of... So those are the issues that migratory routes or dispersal areas have been encroached by either farmers or people who want to do other things. So that's one of the reasons why human-wildlife conflicts arise. Because if, for example, by the time there was maybe, for example, elephants which left, Oldonyo Sapuk going to Amboseli, And, you know, they went there and stayed, for example, 6 or 7 months.
Yes.
Later, when they want to come back, they find, you know, a house. What will happen? Eh? It's just the same way we normally say, "Watanguka nayo." And then they will just also start, you know, destroying the property.
Yeah.
Because, and you know, for example, an elephant will not just, they know even if an elephant passes there 40 or 50 years, it will just still pass the same place. It won't go anywhere. It's not like you, that when you see maybe something, you say, okay, this is an obstacle, I want to detour and actually take another route.
Yeah.
You'll just want to pass through the same route.
Yeah.
And therefore, those conflicts arise.
Yes.
And another thing is the issue of, we are now having a change of land use. We are, you know, even places where we used to know it, they were actually ranges. They were actually places where our wildlife used to be. We are now turning them to farming activities. We are even making them, you know, we are building, you know, the roads. We are doing all many things. And therefore, that arises, that actually causes now human-wildlife conflicts. And this across the country, whether it is in Abadeas,
Yes.
whether it is in Ruma, whether it is in Nakuru National Park, or any other place. So that is actually, I've talked about the issue of the fact that we are now changing or interfering with migratory routes. The other thing is the climate change. You realize that currently we are having a serious climate change in this country and in the world at large. Because for one, you remember, for example, we keep on, you know, losing or rather having a decline in terms of rainfall patterns. So what that does mean? It means, for example, even if you go to the national parks, we are having less forage or less pasture. And therefore, what happens? The animals decide to look for food elsewhere, and they just get out of the parks looking for greener pasture. And greener pasture can be your farm. And therefore, when you see an elephant visiting you, it's not actually visiting you because, you know, I'm a kupenda. It's because they have seen some, you know, forage. Maybe, for example, Nebia or any other thing. Or for example, they have also seen water because probably you have a bowl or something like that. So that is actually the reason why, for example, at the moment, we are really experiencing a lot of, you know, upsurge in terms of human-wildlife conflicts across the country.
Yes, and also, you know, with that said, no, we cannot ignore the fact that properties can be destroyed by animals. There is sometimes these animals do cause deaths, or on both sides, animals do get killed or animals kill people. And is that one of the reasons that necessitated the government to start now the human-wildlife conflict compensation program?
And indeed, you know, when there is a problem like that, then the government has to come on board because, you know, the role of a government is to ensure that our people are actually safe and their property are also taken care of. And therefore, that is why in you know, when we got after independence, in 1976, Kenya, the government came up with what you call the Wildlife Management Act of 1976. And that's when they realized that they need to compensate people. Back in 1976, to compensate people deaths, human injury, predation, livestock predation, and also destruction of property. But then they found at that time it was too expensive, and there was a lot of cheating. You know, like for example, how do we know? You know, it is becoming. I think that time it was difficult. People used to claim even things. Maybe probably you are beaten by somebody along the road. You go and say, you can see these scratches. It looks like the one for hyena. And you are paid. So I think there were a lot of corruption and a lot of abuse of that. So then they abolished it. Then in 1989, they abolished it in 1989. And then now only compensated only two things: human death and also injuries. That is just because, you know, it's not very good. You know, have you seen people being attacked by, the people who have been attacked by animals? You really feel for them. And I think at this level, even on behalf of the government, we would really apologize and really send a lot of sympathy and condolences to some of those people who have actually lost their loved ones. So then back now in 2013, a new act was came up.
Yes.
And it restored everything, both property, issues of predation, and even people actually having this. And you remember those days they used even to pay to be paid around 200,000 shillings if somebody dies.
Yeah.
As little as 200,000 shillings. And it's not actually paying. It's just not even, I mean, it's just, what would I call it? It's just, for compassion, just to say poorly.
Yeah.
So in 2013, government of Kenya also, after devolution, we came, I think 2016, there was another amendment where, for example, somebody was to be paid 5 million if somebody dies, and 3 million if somebody has serious injuries.
Yes.
And then there is, property depending on the extent of the destruction.
Yes.
Or even if you lose your crops,
Yeah.
you need to call an agricultural officer to come and do analysis and also verification, so that we can actually know how much have you lost.
Yes.
So that's actually what, that is back in 2016. And that's the act now that we are still using. And therefore, I would say that they form the act itself, it's an overarching act based on, we have the constitution's niveau. So that's why we are saying that there we have a schedule of the animals that can be compensated, and the others which cannot be compensated.
Yeah.
And therefore, that is why the government therefore feels that we really need to take care of, because I've talked about 65% of our animals being outside there. Yes. So we need to compensate people. Yes. And how would we compensate them? I've said in terms of paying them, because through them. So that's actually the government then since that time has been incurring a lot of cost, because it's not easy. Yes. Like I would actually give you an example. When the current government, Kenya Kwanza, took over in 2022. By February 2023, February, we realized that we are at around 4.1 billion bending bill that had been verified and all that. And therefore, 4.1 billion are not being paid. Because I think in the past, there was no serious payments. Yes. So government, through His Excellency's intervention, came on board and said that we really need to ensure that we now pay people, because the Kenyans who have suffered, lost their properties, debts and all that, need to be paid. So for the last 2 years now, we have actually paid around 2.8 billion of the 4.1 billion. Yes. Which is actually above almost half. Yes.
And there's also a new tech-driven model that you're using.
I just wanted to say, out of that, 2.8 billion, and then we are now remaining with, I think out of that 2.8 billion is 1.0 something, that's around 1.4, 4.1, that's almost 1.3 billion that is still pending. Yeah. And the president on Monday will be also, overseeing another payment for this financial year, 2025. Now,
how much are we looking at on Monday? How much are we looking at?
It is good money. It might be almost about $1 billion. Oh, okay. Yeah, so it is just because it's an average of $1 billion every year. Because again, this is not it's little money. It's the government has we have what other things that we are doing, building roads, doing this and all that. Yeah. But then this is also very important, and it is something that had been forgotten for a long time. If you realize that it is through this dispensation, this government, that has actually started talking about the issue of compensation and all that. In the past, I'm sure you didn't see, it was very low-key, but now it's when people are just saying, there's a group of constituent of people who have been suffering, and they need to be paid, they need to be given their rights. Yes. Coming to what you are saying, why are we going to technical, digital? Yes. It is because, you see, these people you are talking about, 4.1 billion, some of them, some of them lost their loved ones in probably, look at it, maybe in 2013.
Yes.
Others even earlier than that.
Yeah.
And you wait for how long? For 10 years to be compensated. Are you getting that?
Yeah.
Because of the process.
So there's some level of bureaucracy that has been withdrawn.
Yes, yes. You see now what we are saying is we are even now, that 4.1 billion that we are talking about as a pending bill and all that goes back to maybe 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016.
Yes.
Because somewhere, for example, in Laikipia, somebody was attacked by maybe an elephant or whatever it is. And then you see there is a process. You need to go and report it to KWS. You need to report it to the chief. Then again, what do you call the community wildlife compensation committee sits down.
Yeah.
They verify, and you know we are talking about a heap of documents. So it will take another 3, 4, 5 months.
Yes.
By the time now it comes back to the minister, because the person who is authorized to pay is the cabinet secretary. So by the time it reaches Nairobi, it is about 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
So can you imagine that person lost property? Even if this somebody who had actually been given, had gotten all farm issues are just, taken digitally.
Yes.
It is actually relayed to Nairobi within a short time. You can be able to, if you are a farmer, you can still go back to to the next season and plan your things.
So there's transparency and efficiency.
Again, there is transparency, there is efficiency, and again, we are actually ensuring that people have got their own rights being taken care of, so that you complain today, 2, 3 months. If we also remove the issues of corruption. Do you know? You see, when it's digital, you don't. The kind of conduct with the system is minimal.
Yes.
With the people, because you see, when I come to you are a chief or a KWS person, I start discussing, telling you, I lost 10 cows. Then you can say, okay, can we even add to be 15 cows? So that ABCD can happen. You get what I'm saying? But if you see, for example, with digitally, we can be able to even count the number of animals that have died or that have been, there is a way of doing it. And then it's actually put in the system. And then it's actually processed. And again, like for example, we have now M-Pesa. Like, we have people whose claims are less than 100,000 shillings. And there are people whose claims are beyond 100, maybe 200, 300, even up to 1 million or 2 million. Yes. But for you, can you imagine your property, you lost a property of 50,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings? Why should we take a long time to pay you? And the best thing we can do is to process it very fast through the digital compensation scheme, and then we just pay you through M-Pesa. You get your money, and you just go on with your life. That is how a government that is responsible does its job.
And you've said, from what you said, you're leveraging on real-time data and verification to make the right
decisions. Yes, and at the same time also use it to make payments.
There's also this program, the model has been piloted in 6 counties.
Yes, as I said, we say that for this system to work, you need to start from a point. Any system that you want to enforce or to implement, first of all, you have to do a pilot or a feasibility study for that matter. So we are using 6 counties. That is Meru, Baringo, for example, Narok, Kajiado, Taita Taveta, and Makueni. Yes.
Talk about the revival of the county level community wildlife compensation committees. How are they helping in all this?
Now, as I said, we have a structure. Even for the manual system that we have been using. Now, I've said we are using, this is 6 counties that we are doing piloting for digital compensation scheme.
Yes.
Now, out of that, we know we have 47 counties. So around other 41 counties, we are using now manual. And therefore, we have also a system that happens. Like as I said, once you complain, you report the issue to the nearest KWS through your chief and all that. Then from there, it's taken to every county as a what you call community wildlife conservation committee. Every county, all the 47 counties.
Yes.
So out of that, we have a what you call a composition of who are they. We have a community members who have been appointed. We also have the government officers, like the chairman is the county commissioner, and then we have the KWS is a secretary.
Yes.
And then we have also other people like the agricultural officers. We have, for example, the police and all this. So when they meet, when they all these things have been filed, then it is actually stored by the custodian. There is the KWS, and the chair is the county commissioner.
Yes.
So they meet and they decide, based on information that you have, to make a decision. They look at this. They are the ones who will also look at the number in terms of how much that this claim, for example, this is a death, 5 million. This is an injury, it can be around 2 to 3 million, based on advice from the medical doctor. And then also we have also rural officers, livestock officers, who will now give out the cost of predation, or how much a cow, for example, or a sheep, or whatever it is that it costs. So it is the work of the community wildlife compensation committee, which is actually found in every county. Now these have been very effective.
Yes.
They are actually compensated. They are given allowances through government. But then for some time, about 2 or 3 years, almost 2 years ago, we had a small challenge.
Yes.
And the challenge was actually because of, I would say it's administrative, because SRC, Salary and Remuneration Commission, are to stop it first to find out how much they need to be paid to be remunerated, because it's a process. So it took some time, almost 1 or 2 years, for them to approve that. So, but it is it's something that has now been sorted out, and it is being rolled out across the 47 counties. And therefore, it is very effective, because I've told you the what do you call the composition, who they are. We have the community, we have the government officers, and therefore you are sure that whatever they decide, the decisions they come up with, they are very effective, and they're actually within that county.
We're talking about human-wildlife conflict. Is there a way that you are looping in the private sector in efforts to ensure that there is sustained conservation of wildlife?
Now, as I said, maybe probably you would actually look at, first of all, you appreciate the fact that we need those structures, and that CWCC is actually captured in the Act. It is part of the structures within the Wildlife Management Act of 2016. And therefore, we are saying that the private sector, for example, comes on board in many areas. One is how we can actually sort out the issue of how do we minimize the human-wildlife conflicts across the country. There are many ways. One, for example, you have to talk about fences. Fencing. Yes. Because, by the way, we are not supposed to actually, animals are supposed to, to roam from one point to the other. But because of now the fact that population, there's a serious upsurge of population. Maybe probably when independence, probably we are around maybe 15, 20 million. How many are we now? We are approaching 60 million. Yes. So that means, for example, the land mass is becoming smaller and smaller every time we move. And therefore, then our animals and the land use activities are now colliding. And therefore, we need to have a physical barrier. And that physical barrier is actually a fence. That's why you see, for example, places like Mount Kenya, forests. We are talking about, for example, our Nairobi National Park. We have fenced it, and many other places. So we keep on fencing places where human-wildlife conflicts are more in terms of cases, and therefore, at the end of the day, we need support. We need support. One, the resources comes from the national government, but it's not enough. We also work with the counties, who also do, because there are also parks that are also managed by the counties. And then again, there are also what do you call the conservancies that are also managed by private people, and therefore they also do the same. So at the end of the day, everybody is brought on board, whether it is a private sector or not. For one, as development partners, they also assist our government to either add more of resources so that we can do nice fencing and also provide that very necessary infrastructure. As I said earlier, why do, for example, elephants and other animals, come out of their parks? It's because sometimes because of the climate change, they don't have the water levels there are not enough. And therefore, what we do, we need to start putting up what we call water ponds. We need to construct water ponds within those parks. We need to do a borehole so that we can get water for the animals. So where do we get the resources? We get from friends, other than the national, the exchequer. We get it from, friends from the private sector who have been actually supporting, putting up of the water ponds, even the roads within the parks for purposes of movement. So I think, in essence, I'm saying the private sector is fundamentally very important partner in wildlife conservation in this country.
On average, how many human-wildlife conflicts do we get in a year? On average?
I mean, like, for example, I won't give you the space, but if you look at, for example, for the last maybe 2 years, for example, we would even get up to over, a year, over 10,000 cases. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm talking about cases like, for example, there would be maybe a few cases of deaths, but we have very many cases of crop destruction. Yes, many cases. Even as we are talking today, I'm sure somewhere there is somebody who slept last night with all his maybe bananas, whatever, what is it called, maize, when they were in there. But when they woke up in the morning, everything has actually gone. So we have a lot of many cases, especially in the following areas. One, if you go to a place like Taita Taveta, there are many cases. There are actually around top 10 counties, like Taita Taveta. We are talking about Kilifi, we are talking about Kwale, we are talking about Makueni, we are talking about Kitui, we are talking about Kajiado, Laikipia, Isiolo, Meru, and the like. In those areas, you will get many cases. Like even, for example, in a year, you can even get up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000.
Yes.
But the other counties outside there that I've not mentioned, that have got very few of those cases, because the animals also there are also very few. But if you go to, for example, Nyamira, and maybe Kisii, for example, and even places like Kisii, Nyamira, at a few in terms of, other than Kiambu also, we have, other than the menace of hyenas, that really brought a lot of havoc last year. Otherwise, there are places that you would really get a lot of this kind of human-wildlife conflict. And the highest, maybe for your information, the one that, we have several animals that cause these problems, like the elephants, lions, hyena, crocodiles, and all that, hippos, and many others. The highest is elephant. It is the one which is very destructive, which is number one. And then, elephants, what it does, in terms of, it can kill you, it can bring down structures, buildings, crops. And the second one is hyenas. you know, that one also can go sedate and also eat a lot of animals.
Yes.
And then we have now lions and all that. But the least one is actually crocodiles, which are actually found only in, you know, whether it's a river or it's a swamp or something like that. Yeah, but mostly it is the elephants that are high in terms of the number.
Yes. As we come to a close of this conversation, what would you want Kenyans to know from all this when it comes to human-wildlife conflict and now the compensation program?
Yes, the first thing that I would want to say is that let's appreciate that God has given us very important resource in terms of wildlife. Number two is that this wildlife is very important for us as a country in terms of tourism.
Yes.
And also for our own, you know, heritage.
Yes.
If you go elsewhere, and I'm sure if you search anywhere, everybody would want to come to Kenya to see the Big Five and all that.
Yeah.
They're actually found here.
Yeah.
And so, principally, we are saying that we have a resource that is very important. We need to take care of it.
Yes.
Number two is that we also want to tell our people that they need to take care of themselves in terms of, you know, most of the time,
yes,
people who are actually killed by this, probably they stray into some of those protected sites. And if you go to such places, you are not paid. Number three is that we want to say that let us try to coexist with this wildlife. When I say coexistence, it means therefore that if you go today to Narok,
yes,
you'll find, for example, there are farmers, or rather livestock farmers,
yes,
are actually coexisting with the wildlife. Yeah, so we try to coexist, try to ensure that we don't block those dispersal areas or migratory routes,
yes,
and corridors,
yes,
so that we can actually have the animals to move freely without having barriers, yes, that can actually destroy them. Yes. They destroy their property. Yes. Excuse me. So that's actually what we're actually saying. And we're actually asking the people of Kenya is that they have got a lot of, we lack a lot of, they lack, in a way, we don't get some information. But I think now I'm telling them that in all the 47 counties, we have at least a KWS station. Yes. They can actually report their issues there. Yes. Whenever they have an issue, they ensure that it is captured, so that we have had people who are complaining. Yeah. They say, for example, they lost their property and all that, but they don't know who to complain to. But we are saying we have structures in the ground. Indeed. From the chief all the way to the county commissioner and the KWS people or our personnel on the ground. Those are people who can actually work with them. And I'm sure out of that, we shall be able to get, a way out in terms of compensations in good time. And at the same time also ensure that they don't lose their property, their economies are not destroyed, yes, and their livelihoods at large are also not affected. Yes. So those are the things that we're actually telling the people of Kenya. All right. But they are good people because, us as people of Kenya, we are good because in the past we have actually coexisted with them. Yeah. But we try as much as possible to minimize the issue of conflicts. And I've talked about the ways we want to do in terms of fencing and these compensations. Indeed. And as I said earlier, this compensation is not payment. We are not paying people. Because what is the cost of a person who has died? There's no cost of life. I'm sure there is there's no cost of life. Yes. So what normally happens is that at the end of the day, we look at ways of just, just saying pole through by paying as little as 5 million. That is actually what we are actually doing. Right. And on behalf of the government, we really apologize and actually say pole. But this is our animals. Yeah. We are not about to take them anywhere. Yes. But what we only need to do is to ensure that we reduce and minimize the conflicts as much as possible. All right. As I finish. Okay, 30 seconds. Yeah. Yes. As I finish, I want to call upon all Kenyans that today is the Day of Biodiversity. Yes. Let us celebrate what we are discussing, the animals and the parks and all that. This is where we get a lot of our biodiversity. Indeed. Secondly, again, is that on Monday, 26th, people living around Meru, people living within the Meru County should come out to welcome His Excellency the President. Yes. Of this republic during the time that is where we are going to launch this year's compensation of the people who are affected by the human-wildlife conflict.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us on matters to do with the human wildlife compensation scheme that is being carried out by the government. That is Dr. John Kipkorir Chumo, who is the Conservation Secretary at the State Department for Wildlife, joining us here on Good Morning Kenya. This is where we end this conversation. My name is Mike Migwe. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get you entertained.